Hello, everyone. This is My Heritage. I'm Alex Abel, and I'm a member of this class, Comps 312 900C. So we have very limited information about my ethnic background, um, but we do know some things. We know, well, I'm actually my father is ordering a 23andMe for Christmas this year, ironically enough, so I'll know soon, but as of right now, we do know my father's side is German. There's some English in there as well. There's a family legend. So my great grandma on my dad's side is Grandma Bacon, and it's legend that we are descended from Sir Francis Bacon, who made massive leaps in the healthcare industry way, way back in the day. Um, Again, it's legend. It's probably closer to something like we're descended from his cousin or something like that, but very well could be that we are somewhat in his line. There's also some Native American background in there as well. Again, a negligible amount, but we know that there is some. And my mother's side, pretty much all German. So a pretty typical Wisconsin ethnic background there. So why did my relatives come to the U.S.? So again, this is a bit of speculation, but it's speculation based off of facts and real historical events. The majority of Germans came to the U.S. in between 1845 and 1855, where there was a massive migration. They came to the U.S. to escape political unrest and economic hardship, which ended up resulting in a revolution. They chose Wisconsin and the Midwest, but particularly Wisconsin because of the geography. It was similar to Germany in a lot of ways, but they encountered some new things, such as land, like a lot more land. In Germany, in all of Europe, and this remains true to this day, dairy farming isn't very big. Consumption of dairy isn't that big either because there is just the amount of people there. There is not really enough land for dairy farms or enough dairy farms for people to consume dairy like they do here in the U.S., and especially Wisconsin. And so they took to dairy farming and kind of adapted it to their culture and started adding it to their foods and just really took it and made it their own and kind of created their own unique German American identity around this sense of dairy farming. Um, and after a community had been established, then it just kind of built on itself because all the Germans that came to the U.S. now wanted to come to where there was already an established German American community, and that was in Wisconsin. And it just kind of cascaded into where now a lot of people in the Wisconsin area have German heritage. So here's some Abel family lore. Three of my favorite stories. So there are one, the self-made Abels. So my great grandma on my dad's side, she was divorced, which was not common at the time at all, and she raised my grandpa and his siblings by herself. They did not have a lot of money to go around, and they just really had to make their own way. My grandpa Abel, he wanted to go to the private Lutheran school in Milwaukee, and but they didn't have the money for it. So he worked on a farm all of his high school years and paid for his own high school education because it was that important for him to get a Christian education. And so he made it happen. The second story is the bookshelf. My grandma has this raggedy old bookshelf, just kind of doesn't look great. It's falling apart. And my dad asked her one day, he's like, "Grandma, why do you still have this?" And well, he calls her mom. And she gave him the story. Her grandma, during the Great Depression, wanted a bookshelf. She went to her husband and she said, "I want a bookshelf." And he's like, "No way, we can't afford a bookshelf. If you want one, go and make one yourself." And so she did. She went and she made the bookshelf, and it is still standing to this day and is now a bit of a family heirloom because after my grandma passes, my dad wants it, and it's a nice story behind it, and we want to keep it in the Abel family. The third story is my personal favorite because I've personally never heard anything like it. So my great grandma and grandpa Ratajik, who I never met, or I was very young when I did, they were not married until they were about 70 or 80 years old. Because when he proposed to her, they didn't have the money for for a ceremony or for a wedding, for expensive rings, and he was just like, will you be with me for the rest of my life? And that's how it was. And they didn't tell their kids about it until they were very old. Their kids had no idea that they were born out of wedlock, and they didn't find out until they were older when Grandma Ratajik said she basically contacted my great aunt and was like, something weighs heavy on my heart. And my aunt's like, oh, well, you like having a heart attack? She's like, no, and told her the story. And so they went and they got a marriage certificate, and they were married in the end, but not for many, many years. So yeah, thanks for listening to the presentation. All the images are royalty free from Unsplash. Yeah, thanks for your time.